Dan and the Danettes, Dan Patrick Show. Jermaine O'Neal, head coach of Dynamic Prep Academy in Irving, Texas. He played 18 seasons in the NBA, played for 7 different teams, and back in 1996, 17th pick overall by the Portland Trail Blazers. Jermaine, good to catch up with you again. Take me back to that draft night. What were you, 17 years of age back then?
Yeah, I was 17. First of all, Dan, I appreciate you having me back. It's always good to see you and talk to you. But it was a pretty amazing night. Obviously, back then the rules were a lot different from perspective. Once you made yourself eligible, it was no time period where you can go through your draft process. It was, hey, you commit, you make yourself eligible for the draft. You forfeit your college eligibility, and it was nerve-wracking, obviously, as a 17-year-old and not really knowing what the process is, but I was truly blessed to have a guy named Aaron Tellum, who was my agent, and Sonny Vaccaro, who went through the process with me and helped educate me about the process that I was about to go into.
Okay, but 17 on the road.
Right. So, Dan, listen, I got to say this, the Portland Trail Blazers did an amazing job on being prepared for a 17-year-old.
Okay.
And, all of my teammates, they made sure that they did things with me on the road that made sense for my age, and they were prepared for me to get there.
How did they prepare you? Because there's a lot of things that can go wrong on the road, no matter how old you are.
100%, though. I think a lot of it is, honestly, I stuck with the core values of how my mother raised me, making sure that I understood what my purpose was when I got there. Obviously, I knew the task of trying to become a professional athlete, and a good professional athlete in basketball was very difficult, because of that big, age gap and transition. But, my focus was, to always prove not only to the people that were saying that I wasn't a great draft pick at the time, but, for myself, most importantly, that I knew what I was.
Cooper Flagg's going in, about the same age, age as LeBron. What advice would you give him?
Man, just, obviously things are a lot different now from a perspective of social media, and we're seeing this impact on how social makes people feel. He has to be able to give himself some grace as well. Obviously it's a lot of pressure being the number 1 pick, going to a situation that, they lost another really good player. So people are expecting him to come in and fill a void. He needs to really just focus on what he can do in his development and give himself grace over a period of time that he has to understand the transition from college to the NBA.
You coached against Cooper Flagg?
I did, quite a bit. He was in my son's, originally the 2025 class, and then he reclassed up, I think after his junior year. But I've been coaching against Cooper, since 7th, 8th grade.
And what did you see? When did you see it?
The first thing that jumped out to me right away, he used to wear these, I call it the Patrick Ewing knee pads all the time. And he was a kid. I was like, why does this kid have these knee pads? But his talent level, he always had ball skills, bring the ball up, beat people off the dribble. He was always athletic. The thing that I loved about Cooper, and I told him this in the last Nike EYBL game that I coached against him in, is that he approaches the game the right way. He's never sped up. He's never shot chasing, right? He can impact the game without even having the ball in his hand. How, he defends, how he blocks shots, how he rebounds, how he communicates to his team. So I'm definitely looking for great things for this kid in his career.
But Carmelo came out on a podcast, I think he might have been with Paul George, and he said that Cooper doesn't have the bag. Like, he doesn't have that signature move. And I said, but he does everything else. I mean, he's 17, 18 years of age. I don't expect him to have that signature move right away. Did you see, he can always be a better shooter, deeper shooter, but it feels like he can go inside out, doesn't mind contact, those kind of things. But offensively, what would you suggest he needs to work on?
Just the shooting. Obviously, the NBA is about shooting now. So the consistent shooting, obviously, the three-point line is a little bit deeper than the college. But I would agree with Carmelo. Carmelo actually, Kyan was in that same class. So, we've been seeing each other in the gym for a very long time. But from a perspective, it's important that he understands that he doesn't have to be anybody else but himself. right? He's like a Swiss Army knife, right? He has so many different things that he can bring to the table, and he just needs to focus on that. He doesn't have a flashy bag, but his flash is his impact.
Talking to Jermaine O'Neal, head coach of Dynamic Prep Academy in Irving, Texas, and spent 18 seasons in the NBA. Do you have a theory on why we've seen these Achilles tears?
That's interesting. I've been talking a lot about this. I think, one of the things people talk about, the pace, and the pace is really fast. I think from perspective, the days of practicing, like really practicing, they don't practice as much, right? They have more downtime. And when you look at the pace, of how fast they're playing, and I don't know if the body's as conditioned to play at that pace. So they have a lot of rest days, not a lot of contact days. And so from a perspective of being able to be conditioned for that quick twitch, to change a possession, that is something that I think has a lot to do with it.
Do your kids ask about who you played against or your welcome to the NBA moment? Do they want to know what was it like guarding or being guarded by? Who's the players they ask about?
I don't think the kids really ask. They always ask about how was it, right? It's always the question of how was it to play in the league, and how was it to play against guys like Shaq and Kobe and obviously LeBron and Michael Jordan. I've been able to play against all of them. But
what was your welcome to the NBA moment?
Hakeem Olajuwon in Houston, and that was not a great matchup for me.
It wasn't a great matchup for a lot of guys, Jermaine.
Yeah, and it's so funny, Dan. I don't think people talk enough about Hakeem. Hakeem is literally, he had the footwork, he had the moves, he had the jump shot. I mean, obviously he's all-time shot blocking, leader, in the NBA. I mean, he just impacted the game in so many times, and many times, people don't give him a lot of credit for this, but he was fasting a lot in his career. And it's hard to do and play at that level, not being able to eat before games, to eat through a period of time.
Yeah, I think he's underrated because we look at the big man and then it's, then Hakeem Olajuwon. But, his footwork, I think soccer really helped him. I thought his footwork was impeccable for a big man.
He used to just dance with people. And, I remember getting in the game and I tried to give him all of my fouls, right? And I was in the game to sub somebody that was in foul trouble at, it's 18 years old. It was ridiculous. But he's a guy that I always like to watch because he was almost impossible to guard. He can hit you with anything. And he was like a ballerina out there. He just danced with you at all times.
Did Jordan take advantage of you?
No, I hadn't had a chance to guard him. But Jordan is, people always have this conversation about, the greatest. And first of all, I don't, these guys are all great, within their own, games. But Jordan himself had a different aura. I remember being in the All-Star game, and obviously you've been in the locker room, and it's like, this is the best players in the world, right? And we consider ourselves some of the best, in the NBA. And Jordan would always come in a little bit late, right? He's a lad, but you can hear him coming, right? And what I mean by that, you hear it's kind of like the noise, and then you hear the cameras, and then he walks in the locker room, and everybody just stopped talking, and he just walks by, and we just looking. He was almost like a god, to be honest. And he's done so much for the game, man. But I think his impact generationally has just been something that we hadn't seen, before.
Did Kobe have that too?
I think Kobe had it. I think, obviously LeBron has it as well, but they don't have, it's like greatness A and then B and C. You know what I'm saying? From a perspective of like how we as players, when we see him, right? I grew up with Kobe, so, we're in the same high school class. So I didn't necessarily look at him that way.
Oh, okay.
Michael Jordan is the one that really, I think, really took the NBA to, the next level, with his stardom.
Mike has a mystery about him. There's not a mystery with LeBron. Maybe right. Not a mystery with Kobe. What was Kobe like, though? You faced him in camps?
Yeah, we've been facing each other since we were 13. And Kobe was always dedicated to basketball. And what I mean by that is like he literally then carried around a lot of Michael Jordan tapes. Like he would not do the typical things that we would do at camps. He wouldn't really hang out much. He was always studying, right? Always studying. So I wasn't surprised to see the type of career that he had because he wanted to sacrifice other things just to make sure he was considered one of the greatest to ever play.
I remember talking to Rick Fox, some of the Lakers, and they were out at a bar. And I said, "Where's Kobe?" And Derek Fisher, they laughed. And I go, why are you laughing? They go, "He doesn't go out.
Mm-mm.
He stays in his room." I'm like, okay. So
yeah, I think that was the biggest thing. Like early in his career, you heard a lot of noise about he wasn't a great teammate, right? I remember people didn't know a lot about him on his own team. And I think some of that was his genetic makeup, right? He was always studying, right? He's always preparing. And, to a point, it was almost to, a default when it came to how people perceived his own teammates perceived him because they didn't, get a chance to hang out with him. And that's one of the things that we always do on the team. We are always around each other. And if you don't see your teammate, then your mindset is, hey, he doesn't want to be around us or, something else. But he was always studying and preparing.
this Dame Lillard situation is really interesting for me. The Bucks are going to pay him $100 million to not play. He's going to rehab. He's going to be 36. I think it's a huge, huge opportunity for Dame Lillard and a team that will get him next spring when he's healthy and could be helping a team in the playoffs. Your thoughts on what the Bucks did and Dame Lillard's future?
Well, one, I'm not surprised about the business now. Obviously, the apron tax threshold now is in full effect. So teams are trying to figure out ways to maneuver around that. So things like this is probably not going to be the last time we see something like this. But from a Dame Lillard perspective, I think he now has a true opportunity to win a championship now because now he doesn't have to rush back to figure out free agency or whatever it may be. He can really take his time and really evaluate each roster, evaluate his best fit. And for a player that gets a chance to basically sit out a year and prepare, I mean, that's an amazing opportunity. And by the way, still get paid over the next 5 years, $20+ million from a team that you don't play for.
Did people think you were related to Shaq?
Yeah, all the time. It's funny because me and Shaq have family members in South Carolina, so we did talk a little bit about it. But I get that question all the time.
What was it like to guard him?
Very difficult. I really believe Shaq he's a special human being. Obviously, he's a giant, incredibly strong, very kind-hearted. And I think even to a point as dominant as he was in his career, and probably one of maybe the most dominant player at that position we've ever seen. He really cared about people. And sometimes he will pull up a little bit if he liked you in the game. And, he's just...
Wait, what do you mean? How would he... He wouldn't take it to you?
Well, he will... You could tell, like, he won't... Like, it's certain players that you knew he didn't like, right? And you can tell from start to finish, right? And then you get in games, sometimes you see him talking and laughing with the guys that he's competing against. And I think some of it was the respect for other people, but also to, Shaq... I think Shaq understood just how strong he was. I've never, ever seen or played against a person that size, that nimble, and that strong. And he could really probably just, people wasn't grabbing him all the time. I thought he had great composure, but he could have really just dominated people if he really wanted to just destroy everybody.
The Pacers moving forward, it almost feels like they might be taking this next year off with Halliburton hurt and Miles Turner goes to the Bucks. What do you think? You got the Celtics. They're damaged. The Knicks are going to be there. The Cavs are going to be there. 76ers aren't much. But, I mean, the Pacers were a feel-good story. And then all of a sudden, now you're without Halliburton, and you're going to be without Miles Turner.
Yeah, it's one of those things in really pro sports, but obviously I was rooting for the Pacers to win it, and I thought that they could win it if it wasn't for that injury. But like you never know. Like in this business, you have to almost be all in, in the year that you can get there, because things like an injury or a coaching change or a key player going to a different team, it derails it, and it doesn't really guarantee, that you'll get back there. Now hell, it took 25 years to get to that point.
Yeah.
Again. So I do believe that it's an opportunity for some of the other young teams with all the injuries that we've had, late season, with guys being out all of next year, like the Orlando Magic, the Toronto Raptors. I think the Sixers can get back if they're healthy, being dominant, but we'll see.
When's the last time you dunked?
Probably maybe a month or so ago.
Oh, okay. Just showing off, or?
And listen, I can go to a rec league right now and lead it in scoring. I promise you I could. Good.
Yeah.
I still try to stay in pretty good shape. And believe it or not, every year I have kids off from my school or my club that wants to challenge me one-on-one. I'm the old guy that they seem to think that they can beat, and I have to remind them that I got paid to do this for a career. So I'm not going to allow a teenager to beat me.
So you could beat Cooper Flagg one-on-one?
So I didn't say all of that. I said,
okay. All right. It felt like you were on the verge of saying that.
No, I'm not saying all of that right now.
Okay.
Here's what I will tell you. If we had a possession game where we were playing mid-post to post and we're going to, let's call it 5 1-on-1, I like my chances.
Okay.
Then I don't like your response on that, though.
Okay.
You have no faith in me.
I'd have to see it. I mean, what are you, 45?
46.
46. And if we're just playing in the post,
yeah,
you're going to dominate Cooper Flagg.
Listen, I'm saying I will be able to. I like my chances against anybody in the post at this point. Now, if we're talking about playing full court, I'm not doing that. Like, I'm going to lose that battle. These legs don't have that much gas left.
Okay, if I have you against Victor Wembanyama right now in the post.
And we're just straight post work?
Yeah.
Yeah, I think I got a chance. I do.
Okay.
Absolutely.
All right.
Then I convert. Again, let's
okay.
You know how these comments go when you say
they're going to go viral. I know.
Right. So listen,
okay.
If we just say, hey, throw me the ball in the post, we go one-on-one versus me guarding and me having offensive possessions, I still like my chances against anybody because I still am pretty nimble from a perspective of being able to play. Now, if it goes to like going up and down the court and screening roles and all that stuff, yeah, you can take me out of that. But if it's mano a mano, let's post up, I think I got a chance.
So you'd beat LeBron if you post up?
Dan, listen, I believe that if I had the ball and if we playing just straight post up,
yeah,
right, I believe that I'm strong enough still. I think I'm still agile enough to score in the low post. Because I do it every year. I still go on the basketball court. I still, do things. Listen, I'm sure if you ask Joe Johnson these things, right? You ask any of the older guys that still work out, they're going to tell you the same thing. But they're not going to say, look, I can run up and down the court with these guys because we can't do that.
So you could dominate LeBron in the post is what you're saying. And Cooper Flagg, you can dominate him.
I said that
Victor Wembanyama. I just want to make sure I got this right, Jermaine. I just want to make sure.
I'm saying that I feel like I have a chance to win a one-on-one in the low post. Like, whether I win it or not, we'll see.
Okay.
But if we're talking about just playing one-on-one in the post, it's something that I do every year, right? I still work out quite a bit.
And LeBron's not that much younger than you, so.
Hey, man, shout out to LeBron too, Dan. Like, this 40-plus years old doing what he's doing, amazing.
Great to talk to you again. Keep working on the low post moves, okay?
I probably will. I appreciate it, Dan.
That's Jermaine O'Neal, head coach of Dynamic Prep Academy in Irving, Texas. It didn't matter what name I threw out. You could just see he's just processing it. It's like, I like my chances. Yes, Marv.
But we talked about that yesterday when you said, hey, does James Harden think he's better than so-and-so? These guys, they're wired different. Yes.
I still want LeBron to say to KD, do you think you're better than me on that podcast? Damn, that would be a great question. Yes, Eden.
But these kids don't play the way Jermaine O'Neal, guys like him, grew up playing, right? They don't play that low post sort of banging bodies kind of thing. Heck yeah, he could push Cooper Flagg around.
Yeah, but he's going to have
he could
LeBron.
He could push Victor Wembanyama around. Heck yeah, dude.
He's not going to push LeBron around.
Maybe not.
Okay. But I like the confidence.